Salutations, my friends, and thank you for tuning in to another edition of Factions of Freedom. I'm your host, Noise Era, Freedom Faction, whichever one you prefer, and I've titled this episode The Summer Rage of 2017. Because yes, things are getting highly crazy. And if you haven't been paying attention to the news at this time in 2017, the 6th month, it's getting wild. It really is getting wild. So before I get into everything, a few updates. As you guys know, we are on season 4 of the podcast, and we are going to start shutting down everything that we're doing. That way we can start conforming and getting everything out there and kind of reorganizing everything and getting things ready for season 5. So what I'm trying to say is make sure you're listening to all the episodes, download them, back them up. You can actually purchase season 1 through 4 up until now on the website. What I'll do too, because I kind of feel bad for pulling everything off, is I'll figure out a way to where you guys can listen to possibly some previous episodes on the website or on other platforms. I don't know. We'll figure it out. I will let you guys know. But so make sure you're paying attention to that, as well as Paradox Radio. We may keep having Paradox Radio go while we take the 2-3 week break. But we'll see. And if anything, make sure you're paying attention to Patreon, because they're switching up things as well. And I'm trying to get more content on there so we can create more of a separate platform over there. So there's a lot of things, as always, guys, that we're really doing. So just make sure you're, if anything, going to the website, factionsoffreedom.jimdo.com, and make sure you're paying attention to all the kind of crazy things that we have going on, because as you can tell, it's not going to slow down, and neither are we in the face of facing it. So with that being said, let's jump right into it. So as I said, I titled this episode The Summer Rage of 2017. With everything that we have going on, what's happening in London, what's happening in Florida, what's happening here in America, what's happening in Venezuela, what's happening in France, what's happening all over the world with the things that we have to deal with. And I think people don't really necessarily know what to do besides either get engaged. And that's another thing that I want to talk about as well with you guys while we have the time, is the fact that somehow they're able to make the revolution trendy. And I talked about this on the one of the Instagram live broadcasts that I did with you guys, where we talked about how these Antifa people, how somehow they're just like popularizing the concept of just destroying the country. And don't get me wrong, I think what's also happening too at a larger scale, a fifth dimensional sense, is we are experiencing them reforming what we consider the resistance, what's considered right and wrong. And this is something that we've detailed throughout the entirety of the show, from the start of this season to even the start of last season. Really, all the other things that we see happening. People like Katy Perry saying that we don't need borders. Justin Timberlake, or not Justin Timberlake, Robert De Niro getting involved in vaccines, Leonardo DiCaprio getting involved with climate change, all these other celebrities getting involved with politics. One of the Jenners, one of the Kardashians, bringing a Pepsi to the police officer. You see all these different types of things as they're trying to play down the resistance. They're trying to play down the concept of waking up, and this was bound to happen. This is why we've talked about this with other people on the show as well. People like Donnie Arcade, where we've asked the question of, do you feel like people have a fake sense of awareness, of sense of consciousness, of cognizance, seeing what's actually taking place? I mean, me and Charles Casson of the Truth is Terrorism talked about this as well. If people really understood the actions of these protests and realized what they were really doing is fomenting the grounds for more of a civil war than they think, they wouldn't be out there throwing bricks around. They wouldn't be out there waving flags. They wouldn't be out there causing all this types of chaos. That's what I'm saying, is somehow they have found a way to popularize the revolution. Now, one of the reasons as to why we're doing this episode, clearly, and why the episode is titled The Summer of Rage, is because a congressman was shot at. A congressman was shot at in broad daylight. Now, this could be a false flag. We need to see where this story goes. But the fact that these types of things are taking place, it means that the temperature, the climate of politics is rising. The intensity at which the speed at which, I don't want to say the social decline, but the destabilization that is taking place is increasing. So let's take a look at this clip, or at least a few clips, where we have Congressman Steve Scalise being shot.
We got one in custody. 25, we need medics. We got a suspect. We have another one down. I think it was a total of 5 down. We need a crime scene tape to start taping off the whole field. We got some witnesses that are trying to leave. I'm trying to keep them on the scene. I need medics in the dugout. I got one in. That was the Alexandria City Fire Department right after the shooting, about an hour ago.
And so what we're going to do now, because as you guys heard, that was actual police recording, or as you said, the fire department, emergency services. What we're going to hear now is Senator Rand Paul give his recounting of what actually went on there.
We had just heard one report that you were there at the park this morning.
I was out in the batting cage in right field when the first shots came. The first shot was kind of an isolated shot, and everybody kind of looks up and says, "Hey, what's that?" And you know, I grew up in the South, and it's not that uncommon to hear somebody hunting a shotgun. And I thought, well, you know what? I'm not really in the South. I'm in the city. But before we could think too much, people didn't drop down with the first shot. People thought, well, they weren't sure what it was, but it did sound like a gunshot, and it was pretty loud and pretty close. But then after that, we heard a succession of shots, 5, 10, 15 shots in a row. Steve Scalise, Representative Scalise, was at second base, so I'm way out in right field, and I'm outside of the fence, about a 10-foot fence where I am, and outside it. And so he goes down, but is moving and is crawling towards the outfield. There was 2 staff members on this other.
We had just heard one.
And so now we are actually going to play the video. Apparently there was a video of someone who was at the actual charity baseball, and they were able to get some of the shots on camera. So let's take a listen to those.
Hey, is that guy okay out there? The guy, that guy been shot. Is he okay? Is anybody talking to him?
Yeah, we are literally dealing with a shots fired situation. Okay, we are literally dealing with a shots down situation, and I know, you know, this could be a false flag, this could be a staged event. Regardless of whatever it is, these types of things will be used to talk about not only gun control, domestic unrest, civil unrest, and how more people need to be restricted. The Second Amendment as well as the First Amendment. All right, now this person that apparently took the shot, James Hodgkinson. Hodgkinson. Huh. Strange. A never Trumper, a progressive person. He talked about it on his Facebook all the time. He was a Bernie Sanders supporter, and this is crazy. Okay, and what's crazy is the information that's coming out about him is how he basically look for specific parts of the information to know when they would have the least amount of security, when they would be open to shoot, and when these types of things would take place. All right, and the other strange thing that's going on about Senator or Congressman Steve Scalise is the fact that he was one of the Louisiana Republican. He was one of the people that was investigating the Clintons. Can you believe that? He was investigating the Clintons as well as being part of some of the child sex trafficking investigations. Some of the Pedogate, Pizzagate stuff that we're always going on about. And they took shots at him. Now, I know what people are thinking. This is all political theater. This is all part of the world stage. Regardless, these are people's lives. Regardless, these types of things will affect us. Regardless if we want to try to shrug it off as if it is a false flag and something that's, done by these people. These circumstances, these consequences will fall upon us. We will be the ones that have to shoulder these problems. And I know that doesn't sound intense right now, but we're dealing with a lot. Every different day, certain types of things are happening. But check this out. Let's play another clip for you guys where we actually have Donald Trump talking about how the shooter in how James T. Hodgkinson dies at the hospital. Now, what do you think that's about? Takes a shot at a congressman and then he dies at the hospital? Someone probably got to him. So let's play this clip for you guys.
Shortly after 7 a.m. this morning, a gunman opened fire on members of Congress and their staffs as they were practicing for tomorrow's annual charity baseball game. Authorities are continuing to investigate the crime, and the assailant has now died from his injuries. The FBI is leading the investigation and will continue to provide updates as new information becomes available. Congressman Steve Scalise, a member of House leadership, was shot and badly wounded and is now in stable condition at the hospital, along with two very courageous Capitol police officers. At least two others were also wounded. Many lives would have been lost if not for the heroic actions of the two Capitol police officers who took down the gunman despite sustaining gunshot wounds during a very, very brutal assault. Melania and I are grateful for their heroism and praying for the swift recovery of all victims. Congressman Scalise is a friend, and a very good friend. He's a patriot, and he's a fighter. He will recover from this assault. And Steve, I want you to know that you have the prayers not only of the entire city behind you, but of an entire nation and, frankly, the entire world. America is praying for you, and America, at least two others, America is praying for all of the victims of this terrible shooting. I spoke with Steve's wife, Jennifer, and I pledged to her our full and absolute support, anything she needs. We're with her and with the entire Scalise family. I have also spoken with Chief Matthew Verderosa. He's doing a fantastic job, of the Capitol Police, to express our sympathies for his wounded officers and to express my admiration for their courage. Our brave Capitol Police perform a challenging job with incredible skill, and their sacrifice makes democracy possible.
We're going to cut it off there. But one of the things that I hope you guys saw with what he was doing there is reiterating the fact again, over and over, if this were not for law enforcement, these types of things would have taken place. The fact that his Capitol policemen, the two Capitol policemen, how they were so influential and crucial to what took place. Now, this is something that I've talked about through the entirety of having Trump in office, and it's not a critique, it's just a trend that I've been noticing. The fact that he wants to continuously talk more and more about what I would consider law enforcement, authoritarian types of things, getting himself cozy not only with military but with local law enforcement, police forces, security forces, and all these different types of things. Whenever these shootings take place, whenever these protests take place, whenever these riots take place, all this does is give him more ammunition to stockpile his force. I'm going to play for you guys another clip where we have Baltimore now going on a 12-hour mandatory shift as the violence grows. Now, I know that was on Monday, but these types of things are going to happen more. These cops that are already staying up, over the 12-hour marker, imagine what happens then. They're going to be a little bit trigger happy, or they'll be a little bit more drowsy. This is what's going to happen with these violent responses. Come consequential uniformity, consequential, air quotes, security as provided by these people. You see, so let's play this video clip.
It is 4:33. Frustration and anger filling the streets of Baltimore as violence continues to increase. In just 24 hours, 6 people were murdered. Police Commissioner Kevin Davis making drastic moves to help stop the violence. ABC2's Chanel Pearman is live this morning at police headquarters for us. So, Chanel, what's the department's plan?
Ashley, 12-hour shifts are part of that plan. The department looking to increase police presence on the streets. Commissioner Davis has made it clear he was not happy about this spree of violence. 159 people have now been killed this year. That's outpacing the number of people killed in 2016. Davis pointing the finger at judges who let criminals out of jail. For the first time ever, the police department has been tracking the outcome of gun-related cases in the city. Since January 1st of last year, police say 60% of guilty verdicts have ended with criminals getting out of jail early. According to BPD, in that same year, almost 100 people were arrested twice or more on gun charges. And Davis says these criminals aren't.
It is 4:33. Frustration and anger.
Crazy. Letting people out. All right. Anyway, these types of things will take place all over our country. And I say this because it's already taking place in France. We are already seeing them, and the reason why I'm trying to jump around and give you guys this many different examples of what we're seeing take place is because these things will go on. I mean, I think what happened the same day. How many shootings took place in the same day? I forgot to play for you guys this other clip where the police have issued a shelter-in-place after shooter kills 2, injures 3, and more in a San Francisco UPS shooting. All these things are taking place. That's what I'm trying to illustrate. Is the summer of rage, this chaos, this instability, this destabilization. All of this creates more of an authoritarian response by these people. So let's take a look at this clip real quick.
San Francisco police have confirmed a shooting occurred at a UPS warehouse. However, no information has been released on injuries. Police stated that the shooting occurred at a building located in Portero Hill. The warehouse and customer service center is situated about 3 miles from downtown San Francisco. The shooting led to a massive police response to the surrounding area. After setting up a shelter-in-place warning, police have advised local residents to avoid the area. San Francisco.
I would avoid the area as well with everything that's going on these days. And there's a reason why I'm trying to put these types of things out here to you guys. I'm definitely not trying to fearmonger. I'm trying to let you know that these are the things we need to be aware of. This isn't something that's only happening, in your neck of the woods. This is something that's happening globally. Okay, and there's something that I'll get into later on that talks about that. But these are the types of things that we will now have to start dealing with: shootings, stabbings, raids. You know, you name it. We're getting closer to a time to where people have to start protecting themselves, and I'll get into that as well later. But let's take a look at this clip where this Florida sheriff declares that this is war, tells America to arm up.
Hello everyone, I'm Sheriff Wayne Ivey and you're on scene with the Brevard County Sheriff's Office. Like each of you, I am sickened and deeply concerned about the cowardly attacks that are taking place around the world. Attacks where defenseless citizens are being murdered and critically injured. Terrorists and active shooters are using every weapon available to target citizens. Guns, knives, trucks, hammers, and even explosives have all become the weapon of choice for murderers who only have one goal: killing innocent and law-abiding citizens. It seems that almost every day we hear of another attack taking place at a concert, tourist destination, church, business, or anywhere else in the world where they can strike fear in the hearts of citizens. Folks, now more than ever is the time for our citizens to be prepared to serve as the first line of defense, not only for them, but for their families when the attack happens. And let me be perfectly clear, doing nothing or just hoping it won't happen to you is not going to save your life. For those who think that it can't or won't happen here, trust me when I tell you that it's already happening all around us. Hello everyone, I'm Sheriff Wayne Ivey and you're on scene with the Brevard. Trust me when I tell you that it's already happening all around us. And the only thing left to question is when and where it will happen again and how many more innocent lives will be lost. As everyone knows, I am probably one of the most politically incorrect sheriffs in the country. And to be honest, I'm good with that. What I'm not good with is sitting back waiting on the emergency to happen. Or even worse, sitting back and saying, it won't happen here, or it won't happen to me. Preparing Americans to protect themselves is a conversation we need to have right now. And giving our citizens the ability to survive a violent attack is not only politically correct, it's the absolute best way we can help protect those we took an oath to protect. Yesterday, I saw a news story where in other parts of the world, they are telling citizens if they are attacked to run, hide, and tell. Really? Coaching citizens that the best way to save their life and the life of a family member, coworker, or friend is to run, hide, and tell? What's next? Ask you to run, hide, and then draw a line in the sand?
I don't draw lines. Nope. Or the only lines I draw are conclusions and connections. And he's right. I definitely have to agree with him, because we are now living in a time to where we have got to learn to protect ourselves. We have got to learn to be offensive. And I don't mean go out there in the streets and start shooting people. Okay, I'm not trying to tell people to go out there and start, killing people. But what I am trying to say is all this chaos that we see taking place, all these sudden pop-ups of attacks, either there be false flags or people who are actually radicalized, people who are psyoped, people who are mind controlled, people who are whatever, psychotronic warfare. We cover all these different types of things on the show, and we have this range for a reason. But we have to look at what's happening in a larger scale. They are literally putting us in a time frame to where everything is hot, everything is crazy, everything is taking place. So we're going to take a quick break, and then whenever we come back, we're going to talk about how France is already extending its state of emergency because of these types of attacks, and how because of the attacks that are taking place in London as well. In the UK, they're trying to censor us. You see, that's what I'm trying to illustrate, the fact that if more of these things take place, and when they take place, they will come through with authoritarian measures to try to provide us with a false sense of security. So let's take that break, and we'll be right back. And we are back. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for being aware of all the work that we are trying to do to help wake people up and get them aware of everything else that we have going on. Thank you for being you. So whenever we took this break, you know what I was thinking. The phrase lockdown comes into place. We chose not to have this international war, this world war. But I think what's happening now is we're having more of an internal struggle. And when I say that, that's what I'm saying. The phrase lockdown comes into place. They are going to start implementing more authoritarian measures. They're going to make it harder to get out of the country. They're going to make it more strict once you're in the country. Things are going to intensify. So as I said before, we were going to come back and start talking about how France is going to extend the state of emergency, more martial law. They've been doing this every 3 months or so. Every 3 months or so, they've just been refreshing it. And this is what martial law looks like, really. This is what martial law looks like. They'll say it's a state of emergency. They'll say that they need to have this in place. And then, you know, they'll start writing bills, writing all these different types of things to put them in place to say this is why we need to have executive orders, executive powers, emergency, a state of emergency. You know, FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, they need to have these types of things in place for the continuity of government. But I digress. Let's play this clip where we have them talking about France.
Following the terrorist attack in Manchester, which killed 22 and injured dozens, the French government has decided to extend the country's state of emergency. The powers were introduced after Islamist gunmen and suicide bombers killed 130 people in and around Paris in November 2015. The measures were due to end in mid-July, but according to the newly elected French President Emmanuel Macron, they will now continue until November 2017. Macron, once critical of an indefinite state of emergency, also asked his government to prepare legislation to strengthen security measures permanently. If approved by Parliament, it would be the 6th such extension. Human rights groups have previously raised concerns over the emergency rule, arguing it diminishes civil liberties.
I would definitely have to agree. As I said before, they refresh their state of emergency every 3 months or so. July into November, now they're saying, and he wants to extend it indefinitely. These types of things are authoritarian measures, and all it takes, as we've seen with the attacks in Paris, and so many other places, that's all it takes is a few attacks for them to say that, you know what, this doesn't work. The freedom, the liberties that everybody has had so far that they've enjoyed, well, the few have messed it up for the many, and that's what they'll do, is they'll use these things, these excuses, these squabbles that are taking place internally as ways to come through with authoritarian measures. So another clip that I wanted to play for you guys is the fact that they have Theresa May saying, you know what, before we actually get into Theresa May and her trying to lock down the internet, so to speak. You know what? We'll play Theresa May, and then if anything, we'll kind of clown on what I meant earlier whenever I brought in the show, talking about how somehow they have found a way to make politics trendy, where they have all these celebrities getting involved. But let's play for you guys this clip where Theresa May is saying that in the wake of the UK terror attacks, the government is ready to seize control of the internet. And they've talked about this before, how multiple internet, how not on the internet, but how ISIS has a Twitter, how they're being able to radicalize other individuals by being online. But again, this is more of that fifth dimensional chess, where they're using these puppets, these tools of these agents of the New World Order, so to speak, to where they can come through and say, well, these guys are doing this. This is evil. Clearly, this is evil. Haven't you seen the evil that they've done? We need to take all of your freedoms because of that. We don't need to eradicate the actual problem. We just need to cut back on letting everybody do what they're already doing. So let's play this clip for you guys.
2 weeks ago, the Manchester Arena was attacked by a suicide bomber. And now London has been struck once more. And at the same time, the security and intelligence agencies and police have disrupted 5 credible plots since the Westminster attack in March. In terms of their planning and execution, the recent attacks are not connected. But we believe we are experiencing a new trend in the threat we face, as terrorism breeds terrorism, and perpetrators are inspired to attack, not only on the basis of carefully constructed plots after years of planning and training, and not even as lone attackers radicalized online, but by copying one another and often using the crudest of means of attack. We cannot and must not pretend that things can continue as they are. 2 weeks.
And they will not. Like that's what we're dealing with. These are the days of where we're dealing with these types of things. We can try to act as if ISIS is not a threat. We can act as if they don't have all the funding and all the machines. If anything, that's what you can look or attribute to Obama at the remainder of his presidency. He gave them all the finances, all the things that they would need to go forth and do all the chaos that they're doing. You see, not only is it ISIS for the military, you know, and the international effect, but it's also things like Antifa. It's also like these other random, really empowered groups, these super activist groups that seem to sprout out of nowhere that have all the funding and the organization. You see, these are covert ops. These are people who are activating. These are all different types of things. We are now experiencing, as I said before, the Summer of Rage 2017. They're putting all these different types of things in now so that they can set the tone for what will come. Set the tone for how next year will play out, what they can do now to prevent this from taking place in the coming years. This is still Trump. This is still Trump's, you know, first year. And if anything, this is one of the reasons as to why he hasn't been addressing these types of things before, is because he's getting more ammunition. They are getting more ammunition, and they are at the same time collapsing the old world order so that they can come through with these new institutions, these things for the technocracy, these things for the new world order. But as we left off with the sheriff in Florida talking about how it is time for Americans to no longer be victims. You know what? Let's play for you guys this clip real quick to make you laugh, and then we'll get into things. But this is Katy Perry talking about how she calls for no borders in response to the Manchester attack.
You know, I can't really tell anyone else how they should feel, but I just feel devastated. Yeah. I think, like, the greatest thing that we can do now is just unite as people, as, like, fan bases, all of it, you know? Because I think, like, there, like, as much, you know, whatever we say behind people's backs, because the internet can be a little bit ruthless as far as fan bases go, but I think that the greatest thing we can do is just unite and love on each other, and like no barriers, no borders. Like we all need to just coexist. If this gets out to anyone, I just want to say that I love all of you out there, and I just know that like some of our fan bases kind of go both ways. You know, Ari's fans are my fans, and my fans are Ari's fans, and like we're just all loving on each other, and we should just stay loving on each other. Tell everyone you love, I love you.
Nice job politicizing that tragedy, Katy Perry. Very nice. And this is what I was talking about. More of these types of things taking place where we have celebrities. Celebrities like Katy Perry and Kathy Griffin and all these other people, you know, even Snoop Dogg himself trying to shoot Trump. All of these people who are popularizing the concept of this, you know, politicizing tragedies or even trying to monetize off of tragedies. This is part of this destabilization. This is part of a organized agenda to foment a civil war, to foment destabilization. People don't want to see what their actions really do, as we have ISIS over here destroying religious iconography at a Catholic church in the Philippines. People don't want to understand the depths at which these types of things are taking place and what their actions really hold for other people and what this causes other people to do. You see, and if you've paid attention to my live stream or my Instagram live where we've talked about this, how some of these Antifa people are you know, literally going around punching people in the face, acting as if they won't get hit. And that's a very bad problem, because these people feel as though they're invincible. But in response to everything that's taking place, because and this is something I think I need to make very clear. A lot of what we are also dealing with here in America are socioeconomic issues. There's not enough jobs, even though, you know, they say Trump is trying as hard as he can to get enough jobs here. There's not enough jobs. We haven't really been producing things. We've kind of been in a lax state for a number of years. And now that we're getting back to our back to groove, trying to do something, there's going to be a rough period of change. So I'm not trying to say, I guess what I'm trying to say is they're going to scapegoat the collapse of the country on Donald Trump. The collapse of the country has been happening for some time now. This is why I've been trying to tell people to pay attention to what's going on in Venezuela. So regardless of all these different types of things going on, you know, ISIS calling for Ramadan, calling for attacks in Europe and the USA, all these different attacks taking place in London, you know, with the London fire, or the London Grenfell Tower fire. We don't really know what's going on with that. The Manchester attack, the London Bridge attack, you know, the Ariana Grande attack. All these other things that are taking place, regardless of all these things that are happening, we need to understand what we need to do. And what I mean is right there, the U.S. militia activity is on the rise in the early Trump era. They're going to collapse the country. We need to be prepared. And this is why, you know, I detach on the weekends. This is why I've been putting a lot more work in outside of the podcast, but at the same time reformatting how you guys get your information. The climate is hot, and I'm not talking about climate change. I'm not talking about the Paris Climate Agreement. I'm talking about things are getting really, really dangerous for a reason. They are trying to foment not only a race war, but a civil war, a civil racial war. And this is another thing that we've talked about on the show countless of times before, with the killing of cops, you know, or killer cops just being entitled, dickhead cops that have too much power. You see, let me get into this article. It's from Mint Press News, and it's a repost by Zero Hedge. It says that the member of U.S. militias aren't waiting for Congress and Special Counsel Robert Mueller to move against the Trump administration. According to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, militia activity has spiked in the early days of the Trump's presidency, which could be a problem for the deep state and Democratic lawmakers who have joined in opposition to the president, and maybe even for Trump himself. An intensifying atmosphere of disillusionment and anger is attracting new members to these groups, which could be a problem for Trump if he fails to adhere to his campaign promises, something that could trigger a backlash from a legion of heavily armed former supporters. Quote, "What would concern me is that nobody gets more angry than a fan spurned." James Corcoran, a professor at Simmons College in Boston, who has watched militias closely for decades and has written extensively about the movement, told the AJC the spike in activity counter to a trend that's as old as the modern militia movement, which first emerged in the early 1990s after the election of President Bill Clinton. Typically, the militia activity trails off when a Republican administration is in power, but increases when Democrats are in power. Speaker of the House Paul Ryan might also want to take note of this trend because the militia suspicions aren't just aimed at Democrats, but Congress as a whole. Could this actually be, and before, you know what, that's a good place to start, to stop. This is a good example of what's going on. Now, not only are these people who are well-armed, trained, organized, and getting involved, these are people who have genuine gripes with individuals. And this is what I was trying to illustrate or talk to you guys about with Steve Scalise, the Congressman Steve Scalise. Maybe this was a targeted hit simply because of his political affiliation, simply because of him leading the investigations against Hillary Clinton and into some of the pedogate, Pizzagate allegations. You see, these are the types of things that we have to worry about now. As I've talked about before in previous editions of the show, could you imagine a world where a delivery guy, you order a pizza, a delivery guy brings it to your house and there's a bomb in it simply because you liked something on Facebook or you didn't attend some type of meeting or because you said some type of thing? These are the days that we are in now. So whenever we have militias growing, people who are doing these types of things, politically inspired attacks, and I'm not saying the Pizzagate attack because that's a false flag. What I'm saying is things like this You know, the murdering of even Judge Scalia, and now Steve Scalise, the shooting of him. And I'll tell you why they had to kill James Hodgkinson is because he had too much information. They probably got what they needed out of him, and now they have it. This is the era that we're in. This is the Civil War. It is not only political. It is not only ground-based. It is not only informational. It is not only ideological, but it is so much more. This is the spiritual war that I talk about in other episodes of the show, manifesting itself now physically. We have got to start doing more about these types of things. So let me get into this article and then we'll continue on. But it says Chris Hill, the leader of the one Georgia-based militia, told the AJC that he's worried lawmakers will try to, and maybe even succeed, in scuttling Trump's agenda. Quote, even if President Trump is able to do the things that he wants to do, he's still got Congress to contend with. Congress is the same old dog and pony show. All they do is fight. They're never going to grant us more freedom. Hill, who goes by the nickname General Blood Agent, told AC that, quote, a lot of people have let their guard down because he was elected, and I would wholeheartedly say that is the biggest mistake. If anything, we should use this time wisely. Like the good book says, a wise man prepares, and a fool takes his chances. And I would definitely have to agree, General Blood Agent, because these are the days that we're dealing with. We can act as the Florida sheriff has said as well. We can act as though more of these attacks are not taking place. We can act as though we're not seeing a rise in murders and homicides and these shootings, domestic attacks, domestic violence, you name it. Okay, the temperature of things is hot, and now this could also be because of the summer, but it could also be because of what is happening politically. We are in a time of tremendous change, and I'm not talking about fake news. I'm not talking about the Russia threat. I'm talking about what is happening socioeconomically and sociopolitically. We are meant to look at all of these things in a larger scope. You see, we are meant to act as the real agents of change. And when I say that, what I suppose I'm trying to mean, or what I suppose that I'm trying to say, is we're in a world to where people are awakening to issues, which is good. People are aware of the social injustices that we face. People are aware of the problems that we have to deal with, and this is one of the reasons why we try to address not only national issues on the page and on the show and in the videos, but also international things that are taking place, global issues that we see. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that there are different stages to the awakening process. People choose, and this is truth, people choose to stay at certain levels of the awakening process. People choose to hold on to certain beliefs. People choose to hold on to certain ideologies. I feel as though we are meant to question all these types of things. But I digress. What I'm trying to say is that you cannot force someone to wake up. You cannot teach the awakening. It is something that must be learned internally. And whenever we have to deal with people who are social justice advocates, how the University of California, Los Angeles, will now pay students to be social justice advocates. You're not teaching awaken. You're not woke, as they say. You're not aware. You're not conscious. You're pushing an agenda. You're pushing an ideology. You're pushing something that has been bought and paid for. An ideology, something that is not one of your own, one that you agree to, one that you adhere to, and a religion, really, a way that you abide by it. You know, however you want to look at it. These are the types of things that we have to look at now. There's an article from Freedom Outpost by Max Lavo saying that they're fighting systems of oppression, and saying that the UCLA will now pay students to be social justice advocates. I put this up June 6th, and before I get into this article, because this time last year, This is whenever actually in Los Angeles they were having a citywide pentagram to raise awareness for Satan, and these were witches doing these types of things. More of these operations are taking place. More of these spiritual operations are taking place. Churches being vandalized. As I said before, ISIS militants destroying religious iconography within Catholic churches in the Philippines. Demonic possessions, satanic monuments. These things are taking place. So I just think it's strange that this time around we are now dealing with the physical, the political, the more active side of it. And I have a theory to that as well. The 2017 Economist magazine cover with the hermit card, where they had, we'll get into this later. Let me cover this article, and if anything, we'll get into that, the crazy conspiracy concept of how they are mobilizing protesters, activists, marchers, environmentalists, everybody. It's wild. But let me get into this article. How fighting systems of oppression, the UCLA will now pay students to be social justice advocates. I put this up June 6th. It's from Max Lavo of Freedom Outpost. It says, as the warped social justice ideology has proliferating on college campuses, bias response teams have also multiplied, though they were unheard of several years ago. They now exist on over 200 college campuses. They consist of students and administrators who basically act as, quote, speech police. They narc on students and encourage students to narc on each other who are guilty of speech that isn't sensitive or politically correct. Now, before we continue on with this article, I think these types of things are thought control, mind control. They're telling you how to think. They're telling you how to feel. They're controlling you. They're pressuring you. This is peer pressure on a crazy level. But recently, UCLA has decided to form a bias response team consisting of 8 to 10 students who the school will actually be paying to bully classmates who are guilty of thought crimes. James Alsop, a college student and reporter for TruthRevolt.com, breaks down the insanity and idiocy of this decision. When it comes to the colleges spending money on dumb stuff, UCLA is setting the bar pretty high. Last week, it reported that UCLA would be employing a fleet of students to serve as on-campus social justice warriors, while actually their job title is, quote, social justice advocates. They'll certainly need the strength of warriors to take on all this job is asking of them. The job of these social justice advocates will be to educate fellow students about systems of oppression. Nothing says I'm oppressed like attending a school that costs anywhere from $28,000 and $51,000 a year to attend, and getting an average of $9,000 a year from the school to do so. What exactly will these social justice advocates be fighting against? I don't know. Which heads of the privileged hydra will these warriors be attempting to cut down? As reported by Campus Reform, the Social Justice Advocate Program seeks students who want to help their classmates, quote, navigate a world that operates on whiteness, patriarchy, heteronormativity as the primary ideologies. These forces, whiteness, the patriarchy, and heteronormativity, are being described as systems of oppression. Then, after denying white people, straight people, and men as the enemy, they say that their goal is to make UCLA a more, quote, equitable space for everyone, unless, of course, you're white, straight, in case you are literally a Nazi. Wow, that's crazy. That's crazy. I was not expecting that last-minute turn, and I was not trying to sound racist. These people are trying to sound racist, these social justice advocates, and that's what we're dealing with here. In 2017, really, is the realization that these people can push an ideology against you. Now, the race war is something we try to not cover on the show because that brings up a whole different topic. What I'm trying to say is, whenever we're looking at systems of oppression as provided by UCLA, we're not looking at things really like the Illuminati, the global banking structure, the Federal Reserve. We're not looking at things like international trade agreements, some ridiculous taxes that most people have to pay. That's real social injustice, if you ask me. You see, they're when they do this, when they're basically using these politically correct bros, these PC bros, these social justice advocates, these SJWs, these people to push an ideology against you, they are making you think a certain way. They're basically consecrating the ground, claiming the ground for their own, saying that if you do not have this ideology, you cannot attend here. If you do not abide by these rules, you cannot attend here. Now, I know that sounds silly, but this is what they're teaching in school. This is outside of Common Core, which is a ridiculous form of math, but they are now teaching this form of thought control. They are now teaching people that if you don't adhere to this way of thinking, this mindset, you have to go. What do you think what kind of punishments do you think these people will add? What kind of things do you think they'll I don't know, what punishments could there be? You see, so they are organizing is what I'm trying to say, or they're restructuring what we see taking place. Information doesn't have the same, I guess it doesn't have the same feel as you would think it should. People are interpreting things entirely different. We are truly in the days of misinformation, confusion, and chaos. This is the entirety of what I feel like Donald Trump's administration is meant to be, and from the chaos they will come forth with a even crazier society that we have got to, not even an even crazier society, but an even more complicated society that we've got to deal with. So as I said before, whenever we were talking about these social justice advocates mobilizing the protesters, mobilizing the movement, so to speak. At the start of 2017, they came out with a Economist cover that showed, as you see right there, the Tower, Judgment, the World, the Hermit, Death, the Magician, the Wheel of Fortune, and the Star. Now, all of these things have their own symbols, their own meaning, and we have yet to I have yet to figure out what it means entirely, and this is what we're trying to figure out right here. But the card I want you guys to look at is the Hermit. The Hermit basically shows it shows death standing on top of a mountain, the earth cracking, and it shows multiple flags being walked through a valley with people carrying them. I feel like that is them mobilizing, as I said before, the marchers, the activists, the people that are doing these types of things. Okay, and now the other tower that they have, or the other picture that they have, the other tarot card that they have is the tower, the splitting of the tower, the Trump Tower, I'm sure to say, the sharing of the wealth, the destroying of what these people call the patriarchy, apparently. Because if you think of the symbolism with obelisks, the phallic symbolism behind that, how they are, it's crazy. But in this actual tarot card, they have the communist sickle, the communist hammer and sickle, and then they have the cross on the other side, possibly indicating the concept of Russia maybe fighting with Christianity, or communism fighting with Christianity. Because if you look at it's Marxism. Yeah, it's Marxism that has the total ideology of trying to dethrone God. So what I'm trying to say in this Planet Trump 2017 Economist cover, what I'm trying to say, and then we'll take a quick break, is that we are dealing with a world of instability, a world of insanity, and a world of crazy. You see, so we're going to come back and, if anything, try to wrap it up talking about how they're going to try to overthrow not only Trump, but they're also going to try to overthrow what is happening in our country, overthrow the concept of nationalism, and change everything that we see happening here on the face of the political spectrum, the political planet. So we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back. You know, by the grace of God, I am still able to do this. I am grateful every day that I am able to have this conversation with you guys, to have this relationship with you guys, to be able to convey these types of things with you guys. It is only by the grace of God that I am still here in a day of censorship where they're taking down pages, people left and right, pulling funding, doing everything. It is only by the grace of God that I am here. You know, and I am truly grateful for the fact that I am able to be here and to do these types of things. I cannot say that enough. And I really am grateful in so many different ways. Really, that's all I can say. So with everything that we have going on, you know, just getting ourselves straight and sticking to the facts, you know, realizing that what we're up against, that's all we really can do. So as I said before, we were going to come back and start talking about how they're trying to change how we perceive things, how the resistance is being trendy, how they're considered, they're messing with everything. It's one huge crazy psyop. They don't want us to try to siphon through their bull because we can definitely see it. But what I mean by this is the fact, and I've seen this happen in some of the comments in on the post that we post on the page. People literally start calling saying, oh, well, you know, you should have killed them. Oh, you know, maybe more like this used to happen. That's not good. We can't have people out there saying that we need to kill more people. I'm not saying, I'm really not saying go out there and go kill people, you know, because that's some karmic debt that's going to come back on you. That is something that is going to hurt you in the long run. What I am trying to say is dethrone these people, get them out of power, get them away from us, stop letting them have influence. If they want to be influential, if they want to go manipulate people, let them go manipulate others. There's a tactful way of doing this, and then just saying come out right and kill people, that's not right. That gets us all in the hot water. Okay. But what do I mean? There's an article that popped up right before I came onto the show, apparently, where they're saying that a Huffington Post writer says that the violent resistance should be more organized in the baseball shooting. And what I mean by that is by people like Hillary Clinton coming out saying, oh, I'm resisting. People like Attorney General Loretta Lynch talking about, oh, I'm resisting. Keith Olbermann talking about, you are with the resistance. That is a lie. Okay? These people are trying to play us. They are not only trying to play you, but they're probably trying to play your parents and your grandparents for that matter. Because they know that they have your attention. They know that you have a differing opinion from the establishment, finally. We've been had differing opinions with the establishment. That's why we're doing the show. But what's happening now is they're trying to spin it as though they are the resistance. As if they have the truth. As if they really don't know how many arrests have been taking place with the pedogate, saying that it isn't real, that it's fake news, not realizing that thousands of arrests have taken place. We've gone over the pedogate timeline. Like, come on. Like, why else would Steve Scalise be shot while he's investigating the Clintons and doing investigations with pedogate if it wasn't real? Oh, but these people are the resistance. Okay, let me get into this article. Okay, and then I'll start talking about people like Antifa and these other organized Black Lives Matter, all these other, like I said, overnight propped up groups that are basically here to cause destabilization. But let me get into this article. It's from the Daily Sheeple. It's a repost from the Daily Caller, and I put it up June 15th. That's today's date, and it says that a journalist says that the violent resistance should be more organized in the baseball shooting, the GOP charity baseball shooting. It says that a Huffington Post writer appeared to criticize the baseball shooter for poor planning Wednesday, saying that, quote, a violent resistance has to be more organized to, quote, work. For violent resistance to work, it needs to be more organized. Writer Jesse Ben tweeted, individual acts can be understandable, but likely counterproductive or ineffective. For violent resistance to work, it needs to be organized. Individual acts can be understandable, but likely counterproductive and ineffective. That's crazy. His tweet appears to be a comment on the attempted mass shooting at the GOP baseball practice early Wednesday morning. 5 people, including the House Minority Whip Steve Scalise, were wounded when James Hodgkinson opened fire on the field. All of them are expected to survive in part, but Scalise's detail was on the scene and quickly neutralized the shooter. Ben identifies himself as, quote, members of the intolerant left on his Twitter profile and links to his author page on the Huffington Post when he is published as recently as December 2016. One user called the tweet an incitement of violence and tagged the FBI in reply to Ben. So this is crazy. He says that the Huffington Post writer's main beef with today's attempted mass murder is that it was poorly organized, and I get that. I really do get that. But this is why you see the things propping up the way they are, that they're carrying on as if Trump isn't even in office. They're acting as though, you know, he's going to be taken out. That's why they had the New York theater, or the Shakespeare Julius Caesar theater in the park play of Trump being stabbed like Julius Caesar, is because they are totally disregarding the fact that Donald Trump will be in the picture. They're getting rid of him. They are not including him. They're acting as though he is not important, and they're going to undermine him. They're going to move on. This violent resistance, this overthrow, this coup of the government, this civil war that we have been talking about for some time now, it is at our doorstep. This regime change that we go on and on and on about, it is here. They will use, as I've said before, they will use Donald Trump and these other types of things taking place to implement their own laws, to implement their own thoughts, their own agendas, so to speak. And their main agenda right now really is to just do that, is to cause chaos, is to create insurrection, is to create instability, is to have us at each other's throats, to where we don't think about, well, where's all this coming from? Why are we killing one another? Why are we shooting at one another? Do I need to shoot at this person? Do I need to take care of myself? Do I need to take care of this? You know, and it is to create this era of fear. It is getting to a point now, really, guys, it's really getting to a point to where it's hard for me to keep up with the shootings. It's hard for me to keep up with the news. It's hard for me to keep up with these events. That's why at the start of the show, or at the start of the episode, I said, you know, I'm not necessarily sure how many of these shootings, how many of these events that are taking place, whether or not they are false flags, or if they are radicalized individuals. I mean, this James Hodgkinson, this guy, the baseball shooter, James Hodgkinson, he was part of the Bernie Sanders campaign. He had gripes with Trump. You know, he was probably waiting for. There's a lot of red flags with this situation, and we're gonna have to, you know, dive deep into it as well. But like I'm saying, we don't know how many more of these different things are false flags, whether or not these shootings are taking place, or if these actually are radicalized people. Not only do we have to worry about what is happening locally, and this is one of the things I've been trying to point out for a while now. Not only do we have to worry about what's happening locally, but we have to worry about international forces, you know, ISIS or whoever else these days, whoever else will come in and cause this destabilization. You know, the Syrian refugees, whoever, Russian agents, you know, Chinese agents, whoever has, North Korean agents, whoever has a gripe with us, they can come in because of our open border policy, and they can have these political agendas. They can network with people, as Theresa May said. This is the time where all these types of things are happening. These network cells, they're activating. These militias, they're activating. It's not weird to say that you're prepared for a violent confrontation. I don't think it's strange to say that type of stuff. I think it is very strange to say you're going to go out there and go kill people because of their religious ideology. I think that should never be the case. I think that you need to learn to defend yourself, truly, and this is what I've been doing in my life with people around me. Immediately, we've definitely been training. We've definitely been, I don't want to say a whole lot on the air, but this is something I think a lot of people need to do. They need to be aware of the times that we're living in. So whenever we're having, and I want to play for you guys this clip of Antifa having a counter protest in Seattle, whenever we're having these little squabbles in between ourselves, that's the problem. We're not looking at the global issue. We're not looking at how all these things are really affecting us. Could you imagine Antifa, but now actually having more funding and backing? George Soros is funding Antifa and Black Lives Matter, yes. So who funds the social justice advocates of UCLA? You see, your tax-paying dollars or whoever funds the school at that point. So let's play this clip for you guys. That's all they're looking for is more ammunition. That's really all they're looking for is more ammunition. You know what's crazy is if you guys saw the video and actually read some of what was said in the description, they were actually throwing urine. They were throwing urine in those cups and all kinds of other gross things. And as you heard, those were concussion grenades that were used on the protesters. They're gonna use more of them. I mean, you know, in North Dakota, they're giving people the right to run over protesters. They're dehumanizing us. They're making it easier to not only brutalize us, but legally and lawfully deal with us. They're trying to drown out us having a voice, us being able to say what we feel and fight for what is important. And again, this is another reason why I think a lot of people need to have their facts straight and realize what it is that they're pushing. Because when you don't have your facts straight, when you don't understand what's actually going on, when you don't know whose side that you're working on, or if you're even being used, you don't understand how you're just really messing up things for everybody else. And what do I mean by that? I mean that CNN has been caught again faking, not caught again, but faking news. Faking this Muslim demonstration. This is where we have Becky Anderson reporting on how she's attending a Muslim demonstration. And what's crazy too is in the clip, if you watch the full clip, you can actually hear some of the people who were helped setting this up. You can hear them laughing. Yeah. So basically, what's happening is Becky Anderson is standing there directing the people, and they are moving, walking up in front of the camera, placing a flower, and then holding a sign. And you know, these things, staging fake news. This is what they do. This is CNN, and this is what I mean by people need to have their facts straight. They use green screen all the time. I mean, look at Anderson Cooper. His nose disappears sometimes in front of screens, and you know he's actually part of the CIA. His family's been part of the CIA. All these people who are in these government sponsored or these state sponsored places, really, government-sponsored news organizations, CNN and on all these other fake news places. You've got to see where you got to follow the money. You got to figure out what narrative they're pushing. You got to see, like, whenever all of these other agencies are saying the same thing, who's writing their script? Who's making up these types of things? Where are these talking points coming from? What agenda are they trying to put across? As I said before, they are trying to make the revolution trendy. They are trying to hop on the bandwagon, so to speak, or at least manipulate our thoughts. They are trying to be thought control. These people are playing a game at a level most people can't even comprehend. They are trying to make us think so many different things and screw with us at the same time. But we've got to be aware not only of the times that we're in, but the things that we can do, the ways that we're able to affect what's going on. And what do I mean by that? I think that I'm going to play for you guys this last clip, and then we're going to call it quits for the show. But I think that this is a perfect example of what I mean. People need to have their facts straight. Whenever people get involved, they do certain types of things, they don't have their allegiances right. Your allegiance should be to the truth of explaining what is actually happening, what is actually going on, realizing the facts, and talking about these types of things. So I'm going to play for you guys this clip of Piki Saku, this guy from London, this local London resident that exposed the events of what took place of the London Grenfell Tower right beforehand. So I think this is important, as I said before, of people having their facts straight. And whenever the time comes, you need to know what you need to know. So let's take a listen to him.
Piki, hello. I gather you witnessed much of what happened last night. What did you see?
I was riding back maybe like 2 a.m. I seen like one line of fire. It looked like it was contained at the time, and then like by the time I got here, it was probably 2 of those lines of flats were on fire, like mainly the top bit, and then took maybe an hour, and then like most of the building was on fire. But I'm not gonna lie, one thing I wanted to say though, this thing that they're all saying about, oh, it might have been a fridge that exploded or something like that, I don't know about all of that, but what I do know is they did regeneration last year to that building that they're talking about doing to all of these buildings. They did it to that building only, £10 million they're talking about, and put these shoddy plastic things on there that set up a light because they want more reasons to knock these blocks down. There's two options. They could either regenerate the blocks or they could knock them down. And after that, I'm not so sure that was totally an accident. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm not even gonna lie to you. You could pause me there, but I'm not gonna lie. What's going on in this area? The way that they don't want us, the way that they don't want us here, and they put those rich man's blocks over there, and then they tell certain man in Frinstead they can't even go into that section. That's outrageous. I can't lie. The way that they treat man in here is terrible, innit? So I can't even take the belief out of my mind that wasn't just an accident. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna lie. I think it's fucked, and I think. But we don't know. We don't know. But you're talking about the regeneration that happened last year to apparently make these blocks better, and then these fires have never happened. I've lived here my entire life. My mum's lived here a very long time, and these kind of things have never ever happened in this area. Like, I don't know what they spent £10 million on, but the lifts in this block and all the blocks around, they only cost 60 grand to fix, and they still never replaced them throughout the time I've lived here. So 10 million for that. No, they didn't. No. I'm not. What's going on in this area?
No.
The way that they don't want us.
Nah, man. That dude, he was speaking truth. That brother was speaking truth. Piki, you were speaking truth. And that's what I mean by having your facts straight, understanding what's going on, realizing that, yeah, you know, as he said, where did the £10 million go? If it cost 60 grand to fix it up, where did the £10 million go? To regenerate what's going on? And they said that was a refrigerator that caused that. I think a lot of people, whenever they saw the London fire, immediately they started thinking of 9/11. Why is it still standing? Why is it burning? You see. Give it time. Give it time, and I'm sure they'll figure out a way to politicize this, as they do with every tragedy. Because that's how these types of things work. And I'm not, this episode is not dedicated to talking about the London fire, the Grenfell Tower, but it's to illustrate what is going on. We are living in a time of tremendous change, a time of tremendous chaos, and a time of tremendous opportunity, whether or not people want to realize it. The only question is, what are we going to do? Are we going to fall prey to everything that's taking place? Are we going to step up to the bat and realize that we are the agents of change? These people realize that, but they are trying to use us, and we need to utilize ourselves. We need to optimize our efforts. We need to be aware of what we're doing, as well as the individual power that we all have. You see. However, that's all I really have for you guys. I know I kind of went over a lot, and I know there's a lot of different things going on, but as it gets crazier and as we move more forward into the future, we have to understand that these types of things are not going to slow down. And the only thing that's going to change is how we respond to them and what we can do to affect the outcome. But like I said, that's all I really have for you guys. Make sure, if anything, before we close out this actual episode, I want you guys to go back and try to listen to as many episodes of Season 4 as you can, because with Season 5 coming up, we have got to take them off and then archive them. You can purchase the archived seasons from our store at factionsoffreedom.jimdo.com, or you can also go to the Patreon service, and you can become an exclusive member where you get access to all of the files at that point as well, and so much more. But really, I want you guys to utilize the information and understand the amount of work that we put together for you guys is really just that. It's coming from a place of love. We've got to understand what's going on, and it's our time to do these types of things, and it is my honor and my pleasure to do such things. Really. But like I said, that's all I really have for you guys. I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent. We may do another episode or two before we close out the season and take the break, but you know, we'll be in touch. I'll let you guys know. So like I said, with that being said, that's all I'm going to say for now. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'll have it in the description bar below, or leave me a voicemail at 843-900-6296. And as always, guys, stay vigilant, expose lies, and share truth. This is Noise Era, Freedom Faction, out.